So today we're going to talk about a couple new things in Adobe Animate. We're going to talk about drawing shapes in Animate. We're going to talk about layers and layer organization. And then we're going to talk about classic tweening and what that exactly is. So let's go into Animate here. So I have a new document all set up, ready to go. So, first thing we know, let's talk about drawing shapes in Adobe Animate. We obviously know that we can use our rectangle and oval tools, okay? And we can use those to draw different things and combine different things. So I could actually draw like a rectangle. I could draw a couple circles. You know, and now I have kind of like this car effect. Now what's kind of cool is I can highlight all of these and go to Modify, Combine Objects, and now they're all one. Oop. So now I can highlight that and I can move that wherever I want, right? So that's one way that we can kind of draw in Adobe Animate. Right, I can resize it, all that kind of stuff. Now, one thing that we can also do is we can also draw using our pen tool. Now our pen tool is more like a free draw kind of pen that allows us to go in and free draw. We also know that we can draw with a brush. So there's multiple ways to create things in Adobe Animate. So if you use the pen tool, when we draw it, it actually creates a bunch of strokes. So we would have to go up and go to Modify and Combine Objects, and now it's one, so now I can move it. So anytime you want to draw things, you might want to combine them and whatnot. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about layer organization. As we add things into Adobe Animate, right, we want to add layers because layers allow us to move separate parts, right? So to basically, I'm going to draw, let's go ahead and draw a ball here. Okay, I'm going to change this so it's a nice fill color. Go to Properties. I'll change the fill to be red, and I'll get rid of the stroke. Okay. Now, the biggest important thing here is naming our layers so that we know what it is we're moving. So I'm going to double click on the word Layer 1 and just change this to be ball. Now, let's say you had a character with arms and legs and eyes and a mouth, and you wanted that character to open and close his eyes, move his mouth, and move his arms. We would need each of those characteristics or features on separate layers so that we could move them. And that's why layers are super important. We'll get to that a little bit later. All right, so let's talk a little bit about classic tween. Now, when we've animated and moved things, we've moved them based on frame by frame. We drew a frame, added a frame, drew on that frame, added a frame, and drew on that frame. Well, there's an actual quicker way to do this. Animate actually allows us to use tweening. And the first one we're going to talk about is classic tween. So let's go ahead and insert a classic tween. So I drew a ball on frame 1. And now I'm going to go to like frame, let's go frame 16, for instance. And we can change that later. I'm going to insert a keyframe there. And now after I do that, I'm going to drag the ball to where I want it to end. After I do that, I'm going to click in the middle somewhere, so like frame 8. And in our control panels, we have Insert Classic Tween. I'm going to click that. Oh, and this little menu pops up. It says the selected frame cannot be tweened. You must convert frame content to a symbol. So in order to classic tween, we have to convert anything we draw to a symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. Make sure I got all of it. I'm going to go to Modify, Convert to Symbol, and make it say graphic. And I'll just title this ball. So what this basically says is that Animate doesn't know what it is if it's a simple shape. when you convert it to a symbol, it knows it can move it and do things with it. So let's try that again. So I'm going to highlight my ball. I got my keyframe down there. Okay. I'm going to click on frame 8 and insert classic tween. All right. So now I have this, okay? And watch what this does. Basically, classic tween fills in all of these frames. So from frame 2 to frame 15 with motion. So watch. So now my ball will move across the screen, right? And that's what's really cool about classic tween is it automatically fills in those frames. So let's say you wanted your ball to move faster or slower. Just going back a couple here. If we want it to move faster, let's just make the end a little closer to the start. So rather than doing 18 frames, I'm going to go to, let's say, 8. I'll insert a keyframe. And I'm going to move that ball all the way out of the frame. I'll click somewhere in the middle, frame 4, and then I'm going to insert a classic tween. Now, watch how much faster this ball goes, right? Much quicker. So, if we want that to move slower across the page, we would go farther down our timeline for the end. If we want it to go quicker, we would be closer. All right? So, what we can do with this, which is kind of cool, is we can make things move across the page. So, your assignment is going to be to create something that moves across the screen. A boat, a car, a plane, a bird. I would consider it to be one object that moves. Don't think of like a person walking. Rather you do one stationary object that moves. So for instance, I'm going to do one that just looks like a boat that goes across the frame here. So I'm going to go to, my screen kind of jumped out. First thing I'm going to add is, if it's a boat, I need water. So I'm going to add water. And I'm just going to take a rectangle tool. Oh, see, that was the wrong one. That's my primitive. Take my rectangle tool, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle for water. Properties, I'll change the fill to be blue. Oop, gotta click on it first. So we'll make it blue. Perfect. Bingo. All right, so now I need to add a new layer because my water's not going to move, but my boat's going to move. So I'm going to add a new layer, double click, and I'm going to title this boat. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab, let's say I'm going to use my pen tool. And up here, I'm just going to draw a simple boat. All right, guess I could have done that a little bit better here. Let's redraw that. Boom. There we go. Now remember, with drawing with the pen tool, I need to combine these now. So I'm going to highlight this, modify, I'm going to combine and union. I'm going to actually fill this in with brown. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to take this, and I'm actually going to just flip it. There we go. So I got my boat there. Okay, so my nice boat. I'm going to go ahead and convert this to a symbol so I can move it. Title this boat. And I'm going to move this kind of just out of the frame here, right there. Perfect. Just barely out of the frame. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my boat. Ooh. Okay, I'll get this. I'm just going to put it right kind of on top of the water there. Highlight my boat. Perfect. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate this boat. I'm going to have it go across the screen. I'm going to have it go pretty slow. So I'm going to go to frame 30. I'm going to insert a keyframe. And I'm going to drag my boat across that water, just like that. Okay, so now if I right click, or if I go to, let's go to frame 15, let's insert a classic tween, and let's hit play. Oh, my boat moves, but I don't have my water. So what we need to do is we need to click on our water, go to the end of our animation, and add a frame. Now let's see if my water stays. There it is. So my boat travels across that water, which looks really cool. Now we can add other things. Let's add a sky, and let's add a some clouds, right? So now I'm gonna go and I'll add a new layer. I'll title this sky. I'm gonna actually move this to the back. I'm gonna draw a rectangle. Okay. And I'm gonna fill that with, let's go to properties, we'll go fill. We'll make it like a really light blue for our sky. There we go, that's a good color. Oop, it's got a stroke on it. So we'll get rid of that stroke. Okay, oops, got one on the bottom down there too. There we go. Much better. So we have a sky now, which is kind of cool. And what's actually cool is I could go in and I could actually add clouds, or I could add different things and have those move across the page. So here is your animation project. You are going to create a classic tween with any kind of object. Could be a boat, a car, a plane, anything that you can think of. And in the requirements, we're going to need a background. We're going to need whatever it's traveling on. So maybe that's a road, maybe that's water, maybe that's anything. All right, and that is up to you. And you can draw with the pen tool, you can draw with your shapes, or you can draw with your simple brush and your tablet. All right, so again, your objective is to make an object move across the page. Good luck. Let me know if you need help.